Hello everyone, I hope you're all doing well, and welcome back to another studio vlog. The main plan for this week is to try and get my studio back into some semblance of order. I actually decided to take the last week or so off as a bit of a birthday treat to myself, which thank you all for all of your lovely messages on my last video, it being the big 300th video celebration and everything. But yeah, I decided to give myself the week off, which really was just me allocating time for this large project for my prop making channel. I of course really love prop making and just generally building stuff, so I figured giving myself a designated solid chunk of time to exclusively work on this project would be a nice treat for me. But unfortunately it did take a bit of a toll on my studio, so it's a little catastrophic in here at the moment. So of course there's just the general mess that I need to clean up. There's actually quite a lot of new art supplies that are just laying on my desk because I've spent the majority of the last week outside in the garage sanding and stuff. But I also really want to work on one of my Alex drawer units. I got some new drawer organizers that I want to sort things out in there, and just in general the upper drawers in this one unit. I mean, I'm gonna show you everything, but there's definitely some reorganization and improvements that could be made in that drawer unit. Yeah, I guess we'll just get into it and take a look at what we're starting out with. So here's just a general overview of the chaos in here at the moment. To be fair, the majority of it over here is pretty easy stuff. Like obviously I have my drink and phone here, which I don't actually think I've had a chance to show this on camera yet. This is the Mandalorian Beskar phone case that I made for my prop channel, so that will be carded here, linked below, all of that fun stuff if you are interested in learning how to make your own. Most of this stuff is just like generally just, you know, sitting on my desk. Like there's some hardware there for the prop that I was working on that's obviously going to be moved and taken where I actually need that hardware. Some camera gear laying around, some products that I need to clean up. There's some of the new art supplies over there, but we will get into that. You know, all of this like surface level desk stuff pretty easy. Over here, this desk is honestly probably the cleanest. I also don't think I've had a chance to show this in a studio vlog, but I actually put together a pretty decent looking and functional resin printing center, I guess you could say. So I got the nice black silicone mats down there so everything is protected, and then there's just some prints and tools and stuff that I've been of course using with the resin printer and really playing around with that and having fun with it. That is the one printer, and that is the curing station. This right here is the Alex drawer unit that I want to work on the most, mostly these upper drawers. So in this one, just a general overview, you know, chaos has reigned. Most of this looks so bad because I've had to move things out of other drawers to fit things in there, and then this was like the most empty drawer, and so it's got all the stuff in it at the moment. This is generally supposed to be like my most grabbed things, but right now there's like a pen stuff in here that really needs to go back into another drawer, or just, you know, general reorganization of these drawers. For the most part they are pretty I guess grouped together. Like this is quite clearly the ink drawer. This I'm not sure how much work I'm actually going to be able to do. I would maybe like to be able to fit more of my ink in here since I have more than this. This is sort of my random one-off purchase colors of various things. Like we have a bunch of metallic colors in here that I've bought in like different just general colors, but I have an entire set of course that I bought fairly recently that it would be nice to have a home for in this drawer with the rest of the ink. We will see if that happens. There is some more random stuff back there that possibly can move out, but again, we will see how that goes. This one, what is in this one? Okay, this is most used watercolor things, and this might not actually change because it's, you know, quite good. Here we have my original palette box that started it all. That is the White Nights watercolor set just in there. But these are just generally watercolor sets, and, you know, they're quite organized and pretty good, so that's probably fine. This one, on the other hand, is quite a bone of contention with me, which I guess we will go ahead and explain because I think this might actually be the last drawer in this that I really want to worry about at the moment. So in that drawer, the main issue, or I guess what created the main issue, were these. These are of course the Finetech palettes, and originally they were never in that drawer, but I did a bit of reorganization and they ended up in there, and they just really do not fit well. And I'm going to show you in these because this is going to turn into a whole thing for me, and it's It's been in my mind for a few months at this point, and I think I'm just gonna suck it up and finally do it. So here we have the Finetec palettes, which as you can see I have quite a lot of. Now these ones are like the original ones, so they're just, these ones aren't even in pans. These ones are in plastic circular pans, and these ones are okay. I really don't have an issue with these ones. It is mostly these ones that are driving me a little bananas. So these are very multicolored ones, and then these three are basically the same palette in different color sets that you can see from these swatches. Now, if I open one of these, you know, this clearly is not that tiny of a palette as it is, but when you open one up, you can see just how much wasted space there is. And, you know, I have a lot of art supplies. I do not really have room to afford for wasted packaging space. So what I think I'm going to do is essentially make myself some sort of palette tower, palette box, something, so that I can combine these all more together. You know, I'm going to obviously keep the sets together, but I do have a mass swatch sheet for all of these sets, so them being in some sort of tower or palette box or something all together and not separated isn't going to be a big deal. I can, you know, make sure that they stay within a set color order. Yeah, so these three are all like that. So they have these rectangular shaped pans, and these do actually fully come out. They have these little snappy circular things on the bottom that attach into the metal palette, so they are really nice that way. There's just way too much packaging for the amount of paint that is here, in my opinion. Obviously this is very nice, and if you were traveling with this would be great, but for me, I am really just looking at storage purposes, so we're gonna improve upon this. Is this the one that's weird? Yeah, okay. So this is possibly the problematic one, because if I open this one, which actually this palette is quite messed up and dented. I ended up buying all of these the last time that I was in the States when I went to Chicago for Star Wars Celebration, and I went wild in a Blick store for the first time in my life, and it was glorious. And this, I believe, was the last one, and so this has been messed up, so replacing this would be lovely as is. This palette is actually quite nice because it has this removable tray, and there is considerably less wasted space within this. This palette is still quite bulky, and because these particular palettes match up, or pans, sorry, match up with this size, it would be really easy to uniform these all into a singular thing. This one I'm not too sure about. Yeah, I guess I'm going to see what I can design to store all of these the most efficiently. The first thing was, of course, to actually figure out the layout that I wanted for the palette. I kind of figured that 12 was probably going to work the best, although I did play around slightly with the configuration, you know, whether I wanted it to be a couple of rows of 6 or the 3 rows of 4, which does make it a more square palette, but it does just generally tend to work out better. And then, of course, I extensively measure everything and then take those and go into, in this case, Fusion 360 and start to create that geometry. So I decided to actually start with the recessed circles where the pans actually snap in. That was pretty much the most important measurement, because obviously that controls the fact that, you know, whether all of those pans are actually going to fit well beside each other, and then it's just sort of creating the tolerances outside of those circles for how much space you need between the circle and the wall of the palette. So that's where I started, and that's how I got the measurements, and then I just used my usual tolerances to come up with a lid for the palette tower. Yeah, really it's always that initial measuring and getting that initial sketch down in the program that takes the longest, because after that, you know, you're just pushing and pulling and extruding those planes and surfaces to actually create the 3D model of the palette. I did actually realize when I was filming this part that I made a couple of mistakes, so this isn't quite what I ended up with as the final version, but this is what they looked like. I did also make one without the circles just in case I couldn't get those to work, sort of as a backup. Yeah, once I got the models all finalized, then I could go ahead and 3D print them. So here's my test print layer. I did print it in black. I thought it would look really nice with all of the metallic paints, other than just in general. The pans themselves for the Finetec colors are black. So yeah, I guess I'll take this off and we're gonna moment of truth it and see if all of these measurements were good. It just has the little support band around it because of course it has the lip so that these can stack in once I have more of them. So we got that, and I guess we'll use this big palette as a test here. Oh, and we're good. There's a slight difference between the top and the bottom measurements, so hopefully these are facing the right way. I mean, if it doesn't seem to fit, I will just turn these all around, but yeah, this seems to actually be working. What do you know? And these do like actually feel secure in the holders themselves, so I won't need to use any of that tack because these are not coming out, as you can see. Would you look at this? Obviously this is the right way because these are all fitting in well. And there we have it, the new first tower layer. So I guess I'm gonna go ahead and print, I think I need 3 more of these and then a lid. So yeah, gonna go ahead and get those printing. So for the other order of business, which is literally just general drawer cleanup, I got these acrylic drawer organizers, which I love. I also have just this set I've had for a while of the smallest little cubes, and these are great. They are clear, they have feet so they don't like roll around in the drawer, and they're also shallow enough that they fit in the shallowest Alex drawers. So they are perfect for art supplies. These ones are the newer ones that I bought specifically to reorganize these drawers because there are some longer ones in here. So you can see this is the pack of feet, and so these are the small ones that this is an entire set of, that there are quite a few left in there still, but then there are some medium length ones, and then these long ones are probably going to be great for any loose pens and stuff. So yeah, I guess let's get on to the revamp of the drawers. So I actually went ahead and printed a lid for my tower. I figured might as well, now that I have figured out and solidified the size for the entire thing, so that I can go ahead and actually paint this. I figured if I was going to create myself a metallic paint palette tower, then the lid should also have a cool metallic pour painted design. So I'm going to go ahead, tape the inside of this up so that it doesn't get all messy, and then paint it. Next, I guess it's on to the desk, which honestly most of this is pretty much just general tidy up. You know, I've dropped things here like my GoPro from filming outside. There's some tools and stuff that I'm constantly using that I generally would put back into cups up there. Over here we have my water container, which wouldn't necessarily live here, but here actually is some new stuff. So I think I was looking on Michael's because I was needing to, you know, curbside pick up something, and I, for some reason, came across the fact that they came out with more colors of the Color Shift paint, which if you've been watching my videos for a while, you know I'm obsessed with this stuff and using it for palette painting, like a pour painting and stuff. It looks amazing mixed in with different things. So basically I buy every color all of the time, so I figured I would show you which ones I picked up. I also repurchased some because there are some colors I use all of the time. So those ones are the repurchases. So a lot of the palettes have these colors. Basically all of these are like a duochrome. This one you can see really well on camera if my screen is any indication that it has that purple shift shimmer in it. But these ones were the new ones. This one is Plum Flash. They're all called Flash, presumably so that they can tell it easier apart in their paint lines. So that is like a really nice, like more bluey purple. This one I really like because it's just, regardless of the fact that it is like a duochrome paint, is quite a unique purple color. It's very like magenta-y purple as opposed to blue. Like you can see the color difference between them there. So Plum Flash is definitely a more muted, darker purple with this really cool gold duochrome in it. This one is called Dragon Flash, which honestly the name would have just made me buy this regardless of the fact that I buy these colors all the time anyway. So that is very like a dragon, scaly, sea monster-y, bluey green with a nice golden yellowy. I mean, these are all duochrome colors. They're kind of difficult to describe, but you know, this one was, I would say, very aptly named. And then the last one here is Raspberry Flash, which again, pretty aptly named. It's a very berry red color with like an orange bronzy duochrome to it. All of those, so these ones are probably going to go in like my drawer backlog stock that I have of extra paint, but these ones should go with the rest of them, which are over here in this tower. I have some up top, but the rest of the colors are all down there. The usual general tidy up. Over here is just other random stuff. Actually, this is something I've been wanting to talk about in a video for a while. So these are technically somewhat misprints. Occasionally I will print palette products. These are the original towers in this case, and there's just something very minor wrong with them. Like occasionally there will be like just little things on 3D prints that really I have no control over, and regardless of any of this, all of these are still working completely fine, but these ones, it just had a little something more wrong with them that I wasn't particularly comfortable with selling them as normal. So I've been continuously thinking, this is constantly a thing, that there's very minor things sometimes that happen to these prints, and I of course hold them back. I hate throwing them out, so I try and reuse them as much as possible. Like pretty much my tower up there, they're all prototypes or slight misprints. So I've been continuously thinking about the concept of maybe creating like a clearance or as is section and like discounting these by like 50% or something, because like for instance, these, I think the bottom one is completely shot, but if you can see the top two layers, they just have an edge that raised a little much, and like normally there's a very minimal line between the tower layers, but these ones are quite wavy, and so I held those back. I also have this, which I literally did like yesterday, which is really annoying. This insert, it's a K-palette insert. This one printed absolutely perfectly, but I had printed something in blue filament right before this, and I obviously didn't quite clean out the nozzle enough, so there is this really tiny blue color in the corner, and that's like it. So obviously that's like, you know, it's not like a tiny thing, but it's not affecting like the usefulness of this at all. Like this is for filling up with paint, so you can kind of see it from the top side because the white is pretty translucent. It's a very thin bottom to this, like more than normal. Basically all of these are like cosmetic imperfections. It doesn't ever affect the practicality or like the use of the item. And so they're just little tiny things like this that have been building up. Like I have at this point a decent amount of misprints of one reason or another. Like another thing is that I have some extra pieces printed in different filament colors because I've had to change the color of products from time to time, and so I have those left over. There are still some products that print in a different filament because of what they are, but all of the palette products are printed in the same color. So there I have some old ones basically in a different white, which is pretty minimal. Like these, here, I'm gonna grab these tower layers are technically printed in the different white, so you can see on camera it's just a very subtle difference between the colors. I'd be really interested in knowing what you think about like an as-is or clearance section with just things like this, very minor cosmetic imperfections, and selling them sort of like as like a B or C grade pin idea. I know a lot of pin people grade their pins, and I know a lot of people are really interested in buying them because, you know, things like this don't matter to a lot of people, but I obviously am not comfortable selling this as like a normal thing because I know that there is, you know, something just a little off with it. I would love to know your opinion on like a clearance as is section, something like that, if you would be interested in buying like heavily discounted items like this, because, you know, I don't want to throw these out. That's very wasteful of plastic. You know, they are working perfectly fine, and I try and find as many uses for them as I can for myself, but obviously I'm one person, so that only goes so far. But yeah, other than that, I guess let's continue on with the tidy up. So my 3 other tower layers are all printed here. There we go. So I only need 4. Actually, technically, I'm not going to fill up half of the 4th one, at least for the collection that I have now for these rectangular pans. And then of course the lid is over here, which has pretty much dried. I can't be bothered to resin it right now, so I'm going to leave the tape on it, and the next time that I'm mixing up resin to do like a wave of palettes or something, then I'll probably grab this. It's just way easier to do batches of resin and mixing it up and stuff, so I don't waste any. So yeah, gonna wait to resin that. So basically this is all ready to go to fill up with all of these paints. So there we have the 4 layers all laid out. So these top 2 are that big 24 palette, and then originally I was going to put the like gold and bronze here with the other warm tone palette that I have. So like originally I was going to put those 2 together and then have the cool ones separate, but it was going to look really close to that one, and I didn't want to get them mixed up in case I ever need to like reference exactly what it is in a video and whatever. And also I don't tend to grab this set of golds. I tend to grab the other like original gold palette that they've had for like absolute years, and you know, that's the one I've been using for years, so I tend to grab that one first before this. But if I ever do need gold and bronze, I would probably just grab those. So having them all just on their own layer, totally fine. And then obviously if they have any more colors or I buy any more, I can put them here. So that did leave me just with this other palette, which is the one with the square pans. These These actually they definitely have the same whole thing, but because this was like completely specifically measured out, yeah, they're not gonna really fit anywhere too well. So I could obviously make a separate layer for those, but honestly this is significantly better space-wise, having all of these in a tower and then just having this palette and then the original ones separate. Totally easy and fine for me. These ones are definitely the ones that I wanted to organize the most. So yeah, that is what those look like. So then they can just of course get all stacked together like that, put the lid on, and then they are ready for going back into the drawers. Now, in terms of this, obviously I can make more of these. I have no idea how many people would be interested in flipping their Finetec colors into something like this. Other than that, if you are interested in one, I guess email me for now. I can paint the lid, I can have it just be like a plain lid, DIY kit, whatever. But I know there's bound to be at least a couple of you that probably would be interested in this, and obviously if there's more, then I will make this a permanent product. Yeah, that is my finished metallic palette tower. Well, this is easily one of the most concerning looking camera rigs I've ever made, so let's hope this stays. But I figured it was time to actually look at these reorganized drawers. Now this first one is still not the prettiest looking drawer, but it is a significant improvement over what it was. So of course I have those acrylic organizers in here. There's like this whole like a pencil sharpener area over here, which some of these are for more specific things. Like this is the lead sharpener for those like thicker lead mechanical pencil, like these kind of mechanical pencil. So just different things like that. Like this is like a two-step one, so just different sharpeners that I don't necessarily grab for a lot, but I do still need them for certain things. I mean, half of the time I sharpen my pencil with a knife anyway, so that's on me for having like really simple tastes. But so that's like the pencil sharpener area. We have erasers here of varying kinds. This, honestly, I don't know what these are. Like, they're a bunch of like random, there's like a black colored pencil on a stick. Anyway, they're just like random little bits of pencils and stuff, so I did leave those in there. That of course might change in the future. These are those glasses holder thing that are really in here for lack of a better place, but overall this is just kind of like random tooly things, like, oh, and some like line art stuff. So this is one of the fine liner packs that isn't on my desk right now in a holder because it has this really nice holder on its own. But down here there's some protractors, cutting mat, this dusting brush, some more fine liners. This is a limited edition Pentel brush pen that I just haven't opened yet, so left that in there. There is actually also a fountain pen there too that, you know, it's in its own case, so I left it in it. Masking tape. This section here is probably the most organized. On top here, and there's like little pieces on the end here, which is great because these pens and stuff don't take up the whole room, but this, of course, as it states, is a nib container, or a container full of nibs rather. So on top here there's just the small packets of nibs. These are fountain pen cartridges. I took my glass pens out of the boxes that they were in because they were taking up way too much room and put them in here. And yeah, really this is just random. There's different nib holders here that I don't grab for as much. I have like a whole section of like dip pens on my wall above my desk, like on the pegboards, so these are really just sort of the extra ones. Pretty organized. I know where everything is in here. It's just, you know, not the prettiest looking drawer. But the second drawer is definitely a vast improvement. So this is clearly the ink drawer. They are separated by brand. Like for instance, the 12 in the corner here are my newer Dr. P.H. Martin's Bombay India ink set. Back here there's just some random India inks and other types of ink I don't grab for as much. Like I have the ink that I fill up the cartridges for my fountain pens if I want to use them. Also back in the corner are the few Winsor and Newton inks that I have that I've just left in their boxes, kind of because it's easier to tell what color they are, but they're just chilling back here. But the main section of the drawer is all organized by brand, which actually all of these bottles are unique per brand. So even if they were mixed up all together, I probably would be able to tell what brand was what just from looking at the top-down view here. But in the front here, I have a lot of metallic inks, and even though they are separated by brand, I put them all at the front because they tend to be the ones that I'm grabbing for more frequently. I've been buying a lot more metallic inks because I've been using them in my airbrush for props, which looks awesome. So I'm not super picky about what brand I have for airbrushing. I'm more concerned about the color of the ink itself. So all of the metallics are like in the front here, although they are organized by brand. We also have like a collection of white inks, which is probably like the secondary ink color that I'm grabbing, even though I think I have some. This isn't actually all of my acrylic inks. I have some on my pegboard that I'm grabbing more frequently, but I do come in here fairly frequently and like pick up the more unusual crazy colors to play around with. But yeah, that is the ink drawer all nice and organized. Third drawer is what I generally refer to as my more used watercolors. So my main palette never goes in here, I always have it out, but this is like the secondarily most used watercolors that I grab all the time, which of course now includes the new palette tower here with the Finetech colors in it, which fits absolutely perfectly here, which is awesome. So I did reorganize. I didn't think I was going to be really moving anything around, but I did flip a few palettes around because this just fits generally my more grabbed things. It's changed a bit over time. In the back here I have my other Finetech palettes. So this is the square pan ones and then the two original ones that I've had for probably like 10 years at this point. This is the Pelican like gouache palette. It's kind of a strange palette, but the paints are actually really nice. This blue one is my custom gouache palette, which I'm probably going to flip out to a tower at some point too because it's really messy and it just really doesn't need to be that large, but not worried about that today. This is of course the original palette box that has my White Nights watercolors in. And then in the back here we have my Kuretake palette tower, which I really need to do something with this lid so it's not so boring. And in the front here, in again the acrylic containers, these are all of my Daniel Smith like duochrome metallic watercolors. So all of my other Daniel Smith paints I have in pans in my main palette, but I don't have any of the metallic ones. So when I want to use one of those, I want them more easily accessible than all of my other tubes. So I've always kept them separate, but I switched out what these were in because this fit a lot better into this drawer, and it's honestly way easier to figure out and get the colors that I want when I want them this way too. So I do have a couple of the smallest acrylic container here, but I also decided to split because this is still like not the easiest thing to find. You know, I have to like search around to find the color that I want. So to try and make that a little easier, I split them in like warm colors and cool colors. So all of these are like purples, greens, blues, and this is like the bronze, reds, and golds. So yeah, that is the more used watercolor drawer. So the next drawer is the less used secondary watercolor drawer, which actually not everything in this is watercolor. I mean, technically not everything in the other one was watercolor either. So this really nothing happened other than some things got flipped around between the two drawers, but in here, this is actually a Winsor & Newton Cotman set, if I can open it. This one, which is completely yellowed from the UV in my old room. I think I had this like laying on my desk and it's yellowed so bad, like it should be that color. Like you can see the color difference, which is absolutely crazy because I don't think my other one ever did that. So that doesn't look the greatest, but in here it is the full pan Winsor & Newton Cotman set. Whatever you call it. I think this is 36 colors, but I'm not going to bother counting. So I do have one missing. I do not remember what color I stole, but clearly I did. And then in here we have, I don't remember what this is called at all, but it is that color wheel thing that it's like the pretty cheap watercolor. Like they are pretty chalky, but I just love this setup so much. It was such a unique thing, and I think since then, oh, it does say what this is, does it? Yeah, it's the Koh-i-Noor watercolor wheel stack pack. I think they actually make these in larger sets now. But the watercolors actually aren't that bad, and it was just such a unique item, and so that's in here because it brings me great joy to see. This is a super random paint. What even is this? This is premium wax metallic finish. I use this for a painting that's on my wall, but it's this like weird wax silver color. It actually works really nice, and pretty much when you use it, it does end up looking that silver. So kind of random, but really great stuff. This maybe shouldn't be in this drawer, but I think I was always keeping it with the other metallic colors, so really it should be in the other drawer, but we're just gonna leave it here for now. Then we have the original travel palette, which started it all. This is something that would possibly be normally in my like travel to-go art kit or whatever, but I'm not going anywhere, so it's in this drawer for now. But this is actually a gouache palette, not a watercolor one, and that's always been on my list of things to do, is to actually make myself an actual watercolor travel palette, since I'm like the last person that has one apparently. Other than that, we have some watercolor pencils. I believe those are Derwent, the Dr. P.H. Martin's Hydrus watercolor set, and then the Koi watercolor pocket sketchbook thing that's really old. And then this I refer to as the Ratchet palette, not because I think it looks particularly bad, but because I did the Ratchet artwork using this, because all of these are the 40-year-old plus however old they are watercolors that I have back here in their original boxes still, that were my dad's, and that's the artwork that I decided to do. And I used this plate, and there's still quite a lot of watercolor on here, so I've just never bothered to clean it off, and I figured, you know, anytime I want to use these paints, I will just grab this. So this is quite impractical and clearly takes up a lot of room, but you know, it fits here, so I can't be bothered to worry about that for now. And the last drawer that I touched, which I wasn't originally planning on, is the palette drawer. This drawer is pretty much just random painting accessories. A lot of it is different kinds of palettes, like I don't even know what this palette is called, but I use this for prop painting a lot, so it just slides on top for lack of a better place at the moment. But I have like one of my new water brush container things. I use this for water. It's technically a brush cleaner, but I just put water in it all of the time, and you know, they eventually get disgusting, so I always try and have a nice new one on hand. You know, spray bottles, water brushes, other random palettes and stuff. That is that drawer. But yeah, that is the finished drawer reorganization for now. Well, now that the studio is all tidied up and ready for me to make a mess of it again, I'm gonna end this studio vlog. So thank you so much for watching, and I will see you in my next video.